Some new information about the smartphone craze Pokemon Go, and it's now going to court. A New Jersey man is suing the companies behind the game, claiming the game prompted dozens of Pokemon players to trespass on his private property. That's because Pokemon Go isn't a typical game that you just play indoors. It requires players to track virtual critters called Pokemon on their smartphones and follow them to real-life locations like someone's backyard. And this man says the game's GPS set his backyard up as a hotspot for Pokemon, which he didn't consent to, and quite frankly, he didn't want these people on his property. Trespassing isn't the only potential problem with Pokemon Go, though. Tech experts say there's also concerns about players' safety and security.
You're storing information like your email address and your name and your geolocation online somewhere where people could take advantage of that and target you for a crime. Depending on where you get the Pokemon Go app, you could still be vulnerable to some of the information leakage or exposure attacks.
There's that, and then there's this. We've also seen instances of Pokemon-related violence. Check this out. So that's a brawl in New York State after what was supposed to be a virtual battle between Pokemon players. It turned into a real fistfight. And they're not the only ones taking the game too far. This couple from Arizona has been charged with child neglect after they went out to catch Pokemon but left their 2-year-old son on the front lawn in 90-degree heat. When the neighbors found out, they were horrified.
I just can't even imagine it. I would not leave my kids for a second for any reason. I don't get it.
I don't even go in the other room without him, so I just can't imagine that at all.
I'll have to look at here. Lisa Wheels of Fox News legal analyst, Bob Bianchi, criminal defense attorney, former head county prosecutor, and a trial attorney as well. Do either of you play Pokemon Go? No. I needed to get a tutorial. Thank goodness for good teammates. Our prompter operator gave me a tutorial, right. And we found Pokemon right in the studio.
Oh, it's right there.
It's right there. Right, we did. Interesting case. Let's take it each one by one. At least the man who has a case against the game developer, saying that they're prompting people to come onto his property illegally. Does he have a case?
Maybe. The people that are responsible for coming onto the property, the trespassers, they are ultimately finally responsible because they are doing the trespassing themselves. So what they're going to come back, what the Pokemon people are going to come back and say, we're not responsible because they were the ones trespassing. What the owner is going to say is, yes, you reasonably could have foreseen that this would have happened, so you're responsible in a nuisance setup because you made this happen. Those are the arguments on both sides of this case. And
Bob, it's interesting because it's a class action lawsuit. So if it was allowed to proceed, I mean, it could be a huge lawsuit. The company says, though, that they're trying to adhere, they're encouraging people to adhere to the laws of the land, and they're advising them really to adhere to the laws of the human world, not the virtual world that's on their iPhones or otherwise. So is their argument strong?
No, because if nevertheless, people are going to be violating the law and violating people's privacies, and you could be preventing that, which they could. And it was foreseeable that people are going to use this product inappropriately and create a danger into the privacy, not only the privacy interest, but a danger to people who are living in their homes and don't want people going on their property. And here's the other wrinkle with it, Jen, as I see it. When those people are on those people's property, the homeowner now may be sued and liable if there's a dangerous condition on the property.
They fall into a hole, a pool, or something like that. Now they're liable.
And I think the company knows this, but like everything else, it's a cost-benefit analysis. They're making so much money, they're putting aside all of those risks, in my opinion, when they could be curtailed and limited, and they're not doing that, and it's creating a great security danger.
It sounds like, Bob, you're saying that there's some room here, that this craze actually could turn into some really legal cases.
Yes, and they can also argue unjust enrichment. They're getting money from these people, the homeowners, that didn't sign up for this. So they're getting unjustly enriched, the company is.
What about the privacy concerns? There are those that say that the company is collecting too much information, and that although we all have the option, right, to agree to certain terms and conditions, we all know that we sometimes just click agree, and then all of our information is out there. What about that, Bob? What about some of the privacy concerns for users of this game, because they're collecting where you are when you're there?
Yeah, people just push I agree, and they don't realize realize all the data and information is there. As a former prosecutor, we used to be very concerned about this. You're giving up your geospatial location, your situational awareness. You could take bad guys who take advantage of these games, get access to that private information, and you now become a vulnerable target to bad guys.
But if I hit agree, does that mean that I consent?
No, not necessarily. And I think that the way these agreements were set up is a little, a little flimsy. I think the company needs to do a little bit of better job explaining what those dangers are, and you need to just not click yes. You have to basically click on each one that you realize that there is a significant danger to your personal safety.
But the problem is, if you want the thing, and in this case, the thing is the Pokemon, right? If you want that, whatever it is, whether you're purchasing a Pokemon or a pair of jeans, you will, and I'm making a little bit of fun of you, but you will click on I agree. And who really is going to read through all those things?
Well, not when you really want the jeans. I totally understand that example.
I want it.
Well, you also, it brings up a really good question. You also have a lot of children that are clicking I agree and don't even have the capacity legally to agree.
Well, speaking of the children, I want to ask you about that last case as well. This child neglect case where the parents were off playing the game.
Now,
they left the child.
That really makes me my boil here, my blood boil. They cannot blame the game. Are you kidding me? That's like blaming the bar. I had to go get a drink at the bar, blaming the bar. Are you kidding me? You cannot. There's
But there's going to be those cases we know because we've been in the news for too long.
How could they do that?
They can say that this has been an obsession, Bob. Psychologically, I've just been addicted to this game, and I was just following it, and I left my child just for a few minutes, and this is what happened.
Yeah, and while it's not an excuse, but there is the world of the rule of common sense, and there are people that are so distracted while driving. Texting and driving is a problem. They're distracted and they're not watching their surroundings. I was just down the shore this weekend, and I watched somebody that I was with, a younger person, and with all due respect, love the person, as they were so concentrated on the Pokemon game. Not only were they walking into people, but there were guys that I was watching with my situational awareness that were like, hey, come on over here, let's talk. This is going to be a big problem for people, and I would say to any parent or family member that's out there, you need to make sure these kids are not out there at nighttime. You need to make sure that they're not going to people's homes. They're going to be abducted, people are going to be raped, and people are going to be robbed.
Because of the obsession with this game. The rules of common sense, right. You have to, sometimes everyone needs a refresher, right.
You can all go back to school for that.
Lisa, Bob, thank you very much. We'll continue to watch this. John?